Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carrot Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2015 action espionage movie titled Spectre. Now, Spectre runs for 2 hours and 28 minutes long. It is directed by Sam Mendes. It is produced by Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli. The script was done by John Logan, Neil Purvis, Robert Wade, and Jez Butterworth. The story was written by John Logan, Neil Purvis, and Robert Wade, based on the James Bond series of novels by Sir Ian Fleming. The score was done by Thomas Newman, the cinematography by Hoyte van Hoytema, and the editing was done by Lee Smith, and the stars of the movie are Daniel Craig, Christoph Waltz, Lee Seydoux, Ben Whishaw, Naomie Harris, Dave Bautista, Andrew Scott, Monica Bellucci, and Ralph Fiennes. Now, as the 24th edition to the Bond franchise Spectre, Spectre is the highest budget in Bond history. And aside from that, it is also the longest movie in Bond history at 2 hours and 28 minutes long. Second only to, it's the longest since the previous record holder was Quantum of Solace at 2 hours and 22 minutes. This one is another extra 5 minutes longer. But hey, Daniel Craig, he is back in his fourth role as James Bond, and he's back for another high energetic, quick-paced spy thriller filled with gadgets, gizmos, hot women, dry martinis, shaken and not stirred. So aside from Ralph Fiennes returning as M and Ben Whishaw as Q and Naomie Harris as Moneypenny, Bond is also in fine company with the likes of Christoph Waltz, Lee Seydoux, Monica Bellucci, and Dave Bautista. But the best of the bunch definitely has to go to Andrew Scott from the Sherlock series. You know, he's played the villain role in the Sherlock TV series as, Sherlock's arch nemesis, Moriarty. Well, he's once again back in a villain performance, and he just stole the scene that he was in. But the one thing we have to wonder is, does Spectre have what it takes to be one of the best Bond films of the modern era? Well, I like to think that in the Daniel Craig series of James Bond films, this one definitely stands out above the rest. This is actually one where a lot of the old stuff from the Sean Connery, Roger Moore era definitely does make a lot of comebacks. A lot of some of the stuff from the past comes back here, and it could not have come at a better time. Because I think I hear rumors now that Daniel Craig wants to get out of the Bond era, and hopefully we'll see another actor or actress play the role of James Bond. You never know, it could happen. There have been names that have been coming out to play James Bond. I think I hear the rumor that the next James Bond we're going to have, I think Idris Elba was a name that was thrown into the shuffle. Um, but I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope that the 25th installment of the James Bond movies definitely follows this pattern, and if it does, I truly do look forward to seeing James Bond once again back in action, and I certainly hope they could still follow this tradition, because everything from the previous Bond movies has all come back here. A lot of stuff was missing from the other three Bond films of the Daniel Craig era of Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and Skyfall. It was definitely an improvement. It wasn't perfect, of course. Nothing can beat the James Bond movies that Sean Connery and Roger Moore and Pierce Brosnan put out. But I still truly think that this movie still is ions away from them. But I have to say, this was one of the more better James Bond movies that I have seen in a while. So here's how the story goes. Spectre starts with an oblique message from the past that sends 007 on an initiative to Mexico City to hunt down a crime boss. And there he tries to get some questions out from his widowed wife named Lucia, played by Monica Bellucci, who also happens to be, who seems to know a little bit more about her husband and a secret organization. We could tell that he is part of a secret organization because after he kills, I think his name was Marco Sierra, he removes his ring, and it has a symbol of an octopus on there, which means that this guy is working for an esoteric organization. So it's up to Bond, along with his colleagues Q and Moneypenny, to ascertain as to what organization this guy works for and how they could find ways to bring this organization down. So next we go back to London, and the head of the Center of National Security, better known as C, led by Max Denbigh, played by Andrew Scott, he of course has meetings with M and tries to evaluate Bond's actions and looks into the relevancy from the MI6 led by M, played by Ralph Fiennes. You see, Max Denbigh wants to take James Bond out of his work, feeling that 00 organizations are becoming archaic, and that now with more high-tech surveillance, you can easily track down on criminal fiends. So that's kind of like what C's initiative is. Of course, this does not sit very well with M, and of course, this definitely does not sit well with Bond. So not only is Bond once again putting his life in danger, but there's also some other danger that Bond is also in a turmoil with. His own job. I mean, if this high-tech surveillance that C has been mentioning throughout this movie comes into effect, Bond is definitely out of work forever. The 00 agency will become a thing from the past, just like the dinosaurs. And of course, you know, Bond does not approve of that. M does not approve of that. But if they don't react soon, the 00 business is forever. And that Bond is going to end up becoming unemployed. M is going to be unemployed. Moneypenny and Q are going to have to look for other means of work. So there's a lot at stake here. So Bond seeks the help from Q, played by Ben Whishaw, and Moneypenny, played by Naomie Harris, to find the whereabouts of a psychologist named Dr. Madeline Swan, played by Seydoux, who is the daughter of an old rivalry of Bond's. His name was Mr. White, played by Jesper Christensen, who may know how to decode and bring down the organization of Spectre. As the assassin's daughter, only she can understand what Bond is going through. As he closes in closer to what's behind Spectre, he gets a startling discovery that connects between himself and the enemy he's after. Okay. Yeah, and as you all know that in my reviews, I do give away spoilers because I am led to the assumption that people may have seen the movie. But if you didn't see the movie, you don't have to listen any further. But I will give away spoilers. You see, um, working for the organization Spectre is some German guy named Franz Oberhauser who runs his organization of Spectre located in Austria. And it is revealed that Franz Oberhauser reveals that all the people in Bond's life that has died, from Vesper Lind to Silva to Dominic Green to Le Chiffre to the previous M, Judi Dench's M, all have one thing in common. Spectre was behind all these murders. And everything that James Bond has done has been under the surveillance of Spectre. And every villain or protagonist who has worked with Bond knows, Spectre knows the fates within the characters, and the villains who have tried to bring Bond down, but to no avail, have all worked under the guidance of Spectre. They are practically insignificant others compared to Spectre. Spectre was behind everything. That was one of the revelations. The second revelation is that, on a personal note, James Bond is also a family member of Franz Oberhauser. As you all know, James Bond reveals that, his parents both died when he was young, and I believe he was raised in the Oberhauser clan, which technically makes Franz Oberhauser and James Bond practically foster brothers. And then Franz Oberhauser also reveals that he is also not really, his name isn't really Franz Oberhauser, but really an old arch nemesis of James Bond. We are now introduced to one of James Bond's most notorious arch nemesis. We are talking about Ernest Stavro Blofeld. Yes, Blofeld has been a thorn in the Bond franchise over the years. Played by the likes of great performers like Telly Savalas and Donald Pleasance. Blofeld is definitely, we are glad to be introduced to him. And that's another thing I liked about this movie. We are back to introducing him. We're being reintroduced to some of these characters from the past. Mendes actually does a good job of digging into more deeper dirt to bring back some of the old stuff. Skiing resorts in Austria. Spectre, the organization that's run by Blofeld. We get to see these things back. Even the opening introduction, which has, the double barrels, and then James Bond at the target, and he blows the gun, and, that has also came back. And I was actually quite delighted to see some of the stuff from the Sean Connery, Roger Moore past come back here to life in this franchise. Sometimes it's good to bring back the old so that people today, the modern audience, could appreciate what James Bond was like in the past. Sometimes it's good to bring the past into the present. so that the kids from the future could talk more about what's happened in this movie. From the beginning, Spectre is on a similar path from the earlier James Bonds that Craig was in, as we explore the more personal relationships than we've been following over the years. Unlike the other Bond films, Craig's version has embodied definitely more emotional attachments. For those loyal fans who have followed Bond and liked him for the more carefree character, it's actually quite refreshing that we see Bond narrowly escaping potential death. A more brooding, intense character like the Bond we see today is definitely gladly a welcome addition, even though unconventional. And while Christoph Waltz definitely may not be as fearsome as Bond's arch nemesis Blofeld, he may not embody the more fearsome presence of Javier Bardem's Silva character from Skyfall. His domineering yet stunning charisma can be just as equally intimidating. But the audience would have loved to see more physical battles between the two. Basically, it has been just mostly just a battle of wits and a war of the words. I would have loved to have seen more intense confrontation. Sure, there's a lot of intensity when Blofeld and Bond start to, exchange words of dialogue and explaining his purpose. At least Blofeld here does not have this cliched ideology of, world domination, want to take over the world. Okay, we've seen all these bad guy roles where, their modus operandi is world domination. We don't get that here. I mean, his job is simply is to put James Bond out of his misery for good. And of course, he's got his array of deadly assassins in pursuit to take Bond down. And of course, his evil schemes still come into full effect. Okay, so in this Bond movie, I think maybe it was actually kind of refreshing that they didn't kill off the villain in this story. They didn't kill off Blofeld, which actually, of course, means that Blofeld will return for Bond 25, hopefully. But we do see him in his debut. We also noticed the story of how he got that scar down his face. Of course, some kind of machinery blew up in his face, which caused him to be permanently scarred. So now we got the origin story of how he got that ugly scar on his face. And I hope that if he does come back, the scar will be there too. Many people will often say that this movie is actually a recycled plot from a movie that was supposed to be a parody of James Bond. Yes, we're talking Austin Powers in Goldmember, where it is actually revealed that Austin Powers and Dr. Evil are actually revealed to be brothers. So does that mean that Spectre is actually a script taken out from a movie that's supposed to be a parody of James Bond and puts it into the script? So that's kind of almost like recycling. It's almost like semi-plagiarism there. I mean, I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing, but unoriginal, sure. But at least it's taken into a more serious effect than the Austin Powers movie. But it's still, okay, I guess. Maybe many people might frown upon that it was unoriginal. But I don't like to think that way. As for Bond girls, one of the things I liked about this movie is that none of the Bond girls die in this. I mean, we've seen too many Bond girls in the past get killed in this movie, in their movies. But here, not one Bond girl is dead. Moneypenny lives. Lucia Ciara is still alive. Dr. Swan, she's still alive. At least it was good that we didn't get to see any of them fall to their fate. I felt bad when Eva Green's character Vesper Lind dies. It's just sad to think. But at least no female Bond girl dies in this. Okay, speaking of Bond girls, as of late, Lee Seydoux's Madeline Swan is definitely 10 times better than Olga Kurylenko from Quantum of Solace and Bernice Marlowe from Skyfall. However, Eva Green from Casino Royale is still the best Bond girl from the Daniel Craig era. When it comes to villain roles, Andrew Scott, who is known for playing villain roles, definitely as Moriarty from Sherlock. He is back as an antagonist, and he's also quite impressive. He's still just as diabolical in his role as C, who wants to go into great lengths to disclose the 007 program. And even though the action scenes are definitely more scarce, they are the meal ticket to this great thriller. And it's all thanks to former WWE superstar Dave Bautista, who makes his appearance as a towering guy named Mr. Hinks. Now, for all those who don't know who Mr. Hinks is, to me, Mr. Hinks is just as much of a terrifying villain as the character Teehee from the Roger Moore movie Live and Let Die. You know, he was that villain who had that steel arm that could like twist a gun with like a pretzel. Or how about Richard Keel's character Jaws from Moonraker and For Your Eyes Only. I think he's in that too. But yes. Mr. Hinks, you know, he's this huge 6'8", 300-pound behemoth who also has like steel thumbs. Mr. Hinks truly was definitely a formidable opponent, and they had some pretty exciting action scenes. Yes, Hinks doesn't say very much in this movie, except when just before his death. I think the only thing he says is, "Oh shit." But that's about it. Batista's entry in the film may start as just like an eye-opening teaser, but the confrontation he has with Bond on the train to Morocco was one of the greatest fisticuffs of the modern Bond era. And even though Sam Mendes succeeds in weaving the 4 outings of Daniel Craig's Bond character over the years, you know, with the people who have died while Bond was in operation, the finished product does take in a more slower pace that's in contrast to the other films. So that's probably one of the weaker things. And besides the fact that the movie is 2 hours and 28 minutes, I still think it may have went a bit too long. But overall, you know, Spectre, hey, it still succeeds in providing its audience with an endless array of exciting action, plenty of cool gadgets, spontaneous car chases, and gorgeous ladies. But it would have been better if they found a better theme song than Sam Smith's writings on the wall. I just didn't really care too much for the theme song. It's not as uplifting as Adele's Skyfall theme song. But then again, when you compare Sam Smith with Adele, it's like comparing the prime rib to tuna salad that you put in your sons or daughters' lunches when they go to school. So I just didn't really care too much for the theme song by Sam Smith. They could have found some better choices. So, I really enjoyed this movie quite a lot. But other than a few of the minor quips, I still say Spectre is an awesome espionage movie. And I would truly highly recommend that people go and see this one. For all the stuff that has been absent from the previous Bond movies, it's good to see a lot of the stuff come back. Because I kind of missed that stuff. I kind of missed Blofeld. I was wondering, when are they going to bring Blofeld back in? When are they going to bring the Austrian Alps and the skiing stuff back in? When are they going to bring some of these things back in? When are we going to go back at seeing Martini shaken not stir? When are we going to see the humor that was once delivered in a lot of Bond movies in the past come back? I gotta say, this is definitely truly a step up from the other previous Bond movies. And I really say that this is truly, truly a treasured film from the Bond films of the past. This one truly, the James Bond franchise over the years has had a lot of hits or misses. But to me, I think this one is a hit. Not perfect, but it's still a hit. And if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would definitely give Spectre a 7.5 out of 10. So I guess this ends my rider review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. Just remember, be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And then we'll be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Ryder saying, keep watching those movies, and I will see you around. Goodbye.